to Emmanuel, who will get started for us.
Thank you, Maddie, and hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I'm glad to see so many of us on the call today. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to help moderate um, the presentation from our guest presenter and also from our guest panelists as well. But before I go any further, I would love to share my screen and go through a few items for all of us. So if you could, I can share my screen with everyone here. All right, just to remind all of us why we are gathered, this is the African Bridge Network. We go with ABN for short. Our vision and our mission here is to build a supportive community that values and strengthen the qualifications of the immigrant professionals, helping them reach their full career potential. The timing we are in really underscore why such a mission is very important. What we're doing is building that community that do not look down on the immigrants, but actually put value on them and help them leverage the skill set that they have. We come with this perspective that immigrants are not liability, they are actually an asset to our country here. So that is how we show up. The vision is someday, or we get in there, the skills of immigrant professionals will be highly valued. They will be able to use their past experience to build careers, support their families, and make a meaningful contribution to our society. And I believe we're getting there. I'm really happy to share with you that ABN, believe it or not, is turning 10 years next month. And we are really excited. What we started as just a few people coming together, immigrants who were impacted by this issue of underutilization of skilled immigrants' talent, has been going on, and it's because of all of you here today and everybody who have come along the journey. So I want to say thank you, everyone, for making this a reality. 10 years of impact, turning potential into reality for the skilled immigrant. Watch out, there's going to be more announcement in this direction. There's going to be other events for all of us to celebrate this achievement and what we've been able to do together as we look forward into the future. In terms of the agenda for this session, I will quickly share ABN's vision or the way we're thinking about using AI for the immigrant workforce. And then there is a panel discussion. The whole idea of the panel discussion is to really give us a chance to hear from the expert what is happening in the field of AI and workforce development. And then for everyone, we've done a study. ABI has been thinking about this area for a little bit, and for us to figure out where do we start from, we've done a study, and today part of this conversation to share with you the study we did that is pointing us to where do we start this work from. And after that, we'll open it up for conversation among all of us. So on the screen again is just a quick background of who registered to be part of this. We have about 145 people registered this afternoon to join us. About half of those who registered are practitioners, meaning they are already in the workforce development space, whether they be career advisor or professional in the workforce space or a policy person. Half of those who registered are in that space. You have 21 of them labeling themselves as immigrant professional, 12 being job seekers, and 11 being others. On your screen are the top questions that people who registered to be part of this discussion share with us. And again, let me use this opportunity to say welcome if you're just joining us. And if you have not got a chance, you can introduce yourself in the chat so that we know who is here with us today. Why does this topic matters? AI for immigrant workforce development. Why does it matter? We are all aware of AI, and probably a good number of us are using it one way or the other. It is really revolutionary tool that we are all beginning to deal with, right? And for ABN, our goal here is to really ensure the immigrant community is not left out both on the development and the deployment of this tool. Why does it matter? So a couple of things I want to share with you just to ground the conversation for this afternoon. Um, there's a lot of research that is going into what will be the impact of AI on workforce development. What we're looking at right now is, will AI just impact tasks being performed by workers, or will AI replace workers altogether? Yes, right now, we are very early in its adaptation. And what we are seeing is AI is impacting more of tasks. AI is able to do more of the things that human beings are able to do in terms of workspace. Yes, there's minimum impact on employment, but we're beginning to see that that is shifting. So it matters that we pay attention to that shift, moving from task impact to worker replacement. The second piece is it's been studied and established that AI as a tool has the potential to perpetuate the systemic discrimination and inequalities that already exist. And in the areas of hiring, lending, and criminal justice, AI is built by people, organization, culture, and everything in there is being carried out to these two. And it have serious ramification as we use these two, or as all of us adopt these two. So we need to pay attention to that. However, AI, as it is a tool and it's a neutral tool. It can also be a force for good. If we only focus on the negative side of AI, we are also going to miss out on the potential for AI to create new forms of meaningful jobs. So some of the tasks that we do on the day-to-day basis that contribute to our work, AI can do it for us so that we'll focus our attention on what is much more meaningful. And then also is going to create a whole new set of work and job for us moving into the future. And if we use this tool right, it is going to enhance the work you and I do every day. So there is some good in there, but I must say, for us to really achieve the good that comes with this tool is going to take an action. And to me, that is why it's important. The action will have to be urgent, intentional. It's going to require investment and collaboration among all of us to able to say we want to ensure that the immigrant population or the immigrant workforce are being part in the development and the deployment of the AI too, so that they get to benefit from it, and not so much as to be the to not so much to worsen the inequalities that already exist. And if anyone is interested, I'll put in the chat. The state of Massachusetts has released a report on Massachusetts Strategic AI Task Force report, looking at how the state of Massachusetts plan to build up AI within the state. Is really incredible report. Put a lot of emphasis on equity, and I really encourage you to take a look at it if you are interested in this field. So to me, this is why it matters, and we should all get involved now, because for me, this is a tool that we are all grappling with, all learning to use it, right? It's a plain field for all of us. The sooner we get on, the better it is for us. So in that regard, this is the way ABN plans to approach immigrant workforce using AI. First of all, is that literacy. What we would love to see happen right away is immigrants are given the chance to learn the tools and develop the skills to use it. There's one thing you just downloading the app and start using it, and another thing being trained to use it well. And not only we want to train people to do this, we want to see that the immigrant population also do have access to this technology. And not only the technology, there are specific industry skill set that needs to develop. And again, this is one area we would love to see the immigrant workforce is gaining the knowledge to function and function well. The other angle we're looking at is workforce development itself. I believe even in the state of Massachusetts, there's going to be rolling out of many upskilling training around AI so that it positions people for the job for the future. And what ABN we are much more interested in is access to these trainings. We want to make sure the immigrant workforce are included in the design and of these trainings so that we are not left out of it. If we get this thing right, what we will end up having is a multilingual AI workforce that can really help in the adaptation and innovation of these two. And lastly, it's not just building the workforce, but we are looking at how does other immigrant serving organization adapt these two so that they will be more effective in advancing their mission. And then lastly, how do we get the immigrant workforce to be part of decision making around the development and the deployment of AI? So these are the frameworks we are looking at, and we are hoping it's not that ABN will do everything. All what we want to do is to make sure immigrants are getting asset the support and being part of the roles here. And we're looking forward to find partners that will help us to ensure this happen. So with that said, we're going to transition really quickly. We are really fortunate to have some speakers with us this afternoon, and these are really distinguished national speakers out there who have been studying AI. The first person that we're going to have three-person panelists to talk to have a conversation around AI. The first person is Amanda Amanda is a senior fellow of the National Skill Coalition, where he leads the organization work around workforce education and then policy. He's very much interested in equity in the work that she does. Amanda has been doing this work for a very long time, advising state and federal agencies around issues of skill development. One thing Amanda is really interested in is how immigrants use technology. So I can't wait to hear her thoughts on this issue of AI, the use of AI. Our next guest is going to be John. John is the CEO of AI Technologies Partners. And what John Group does is they provide support for organizations to adapt AI in their day-to-day work to make them more effective in their operations. John have more than 30 years experience in technology innovation. I must also say John is also a mentor for ABN clients who are interested in building career in the IT space. So John, again, thank you for what you do and your support for ABN clients. And we have Tiffany, Director of Innovation, Training and Programs from GFF. If anyone knows GFF, that's Job for the Future. It's a national workforce organization. And Stephanie's role is around AI development. So she see what is going on around artificial intelligence and future of work. Tiffany have more than 10 years of experience in strategy research and operation across education, workforce, and technology. So we are really fortunate to have Tiffany join us this afternoon. I'm going to hold off on Nicole, who is our researcher, and I will introduce her later on. So with that said, I'm going to bring down my slide and intro so that you can see our panelists. So if Maddie, you can highlight the panelists for us for the moment. And if maybe I mention your name and you can either just wave or just wing for us so that we know who is it that we're talking about. So the first person is Amanda. If you can pin Amanda for us so that Amanda is spotlight, that would be great. And then we'll have John as well. Thank you. And then we have Tiffany as well, if you can spotlight them for us. Thank you. The purpose of this panel discussion is to really explain how AI is shaping workforce development. How is it affecting job creation, and how is it also affecting equity issues here? So with that said, Amanda, in your introduction, you mentioned that you are so much interested in how immigrants use technology. And from your studies, you realize immigrants are really innovative in the way they use technology. So I'm going to start with you for now. If you could share your initial thoughts as to what do we already know when it comes to immigrants using technology to navigate life and their career development. Let's start from there, Amanda.
Thanks, Emmanuel, and thanks for bringing together this terrific group of folks. Just one very quick preface. When we say AI, some folks hear that as meaning generative AI tools like ChatGPT or large language models. And some folks are using a broader definition that includes ChatGPT, but also includes basic automation, robotics, machine learning, algorithmic decision making. If this is just a bunch of gobbledygook terms for you, don't worry, we're not going to be in the weeds today. But I just want to be clear that generally speaking, when I'm talking about AI today, I'm using the big term of all of those things and not just the specific only ChatGPT version of AI. So we know from the last 15 years of research that immigrants are often early adopters of technology and often very creative users of technology, often out of necessity, right? Some of you may know the report that I did almost 15 years ago when I was at the Welcoming Center in Philadelphia. We spotlighted at that point an immigrant street vendor who was using a smartphone, even though his English skills were limited, to snap pictures of his merchandise and text them to his best customers as a way of drumming up business, right? So immigrants have always been at the cutting edge of figuring out how can technology help me to start my business, to get a job, to succeed in my job. The flip side of that is that immigrants are also disproportionately likely to be employed in industries where AI is sometimes weaponized against workers, right? And so you can think of, for example, a system that surveils or tracks workers and punishes them for not having hit certain metrics, and can't accurately, for example, capture notes. If you're a therapist and your AI function is capturing client notes, but your AI function can't deal with a person whose English accent is like your English accent, you're going to spend longer cleaning up your client notes than your coworkers who are native English speakers, right? So sometimes the weight of AI falls disproportionately on immigrant workers. We know that immigrants are already consciously using AI to look for jobs and career paths. I was a judge for the U.S. Department of Education's Future Finder contest a year and a half ago. And the two winning apps were an app called Gladio and another one called Workbay, not to be confused with Workday, the software for businesses, but Workbay. And both of those are AI-based software packages designed to help with career exploration. Okay, I have skills in this area. What kind of jobs might I be interested in exploring? Those can be especially powerful for immigrants because when you move to a new country, it's not always clear how your skills can transfer in the best way. I was a pharmaceutical researcher for Johnson & Johnson. I might not be able to get a high-level pharma job right away. What are my transferable skills? Can I get a lab tech position at Quest Diagnostics, for example, right? We also know that immigrants are using AI-related technology as they are designing and launching their businesses to develop communications materials, to develop product designs, to help create PR and communications materials. Those are things that are adopted by workers and business owners from all backgrounds, but are definitely something that many immigrants are eager early adopters of. We know from research from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, from Stefano Scarpetta, that when workers are involved in how and why their company adopts technology, their productivity gains are higher. So basically, it's a win-win situation. If your company buys AI technology and just sort of says, hey, everybody start using this, you're not going to see as much of a productivity gain from your workers as if the company buys AI technology and then sits down with workers and says, hey, we have this technology now. How do you think we can best make use of this? How do you see it fitting into your workflow, right? So that's a really important finding that's true for immigrants as well as for US born workers. And I think something that gets kind of under discussed when we have these conversations about how AI is changing jobs, or as Emmanuel noted in his opening remarks, sometimes changing tasks within a job more so than changing a single job. The last thing I want to say before I leave time for other folks to jump into the conversation here is AI is built on a training set of data that is disproportionately white, English speaking, professional class, industrialized world data. It doesn't include, it is blind to a lot of languages, a lot of expertise, a lot of life experience. And that is really problematic because, on the very simplest level, if you ask ChatGPT, tell me a story about a possible career path, and I give you two names, and one of those names is John, and one of those names is Ayodele, it's going to make up two stories, and it's going to base those on the predictive text that's in its learning material of all that material it's vacuumed up from the web and other sources. And that text might tell me that Ayodele can only be a hair braider, but John can be a doctor. Now, there's no shame in being a hair braider, and I don't in any way mean to demean that. But it's really important to understand that the underlying data that these systems are trained on is not statistically representative data that covers all of the kinds of people and kinds of expertise there are in the world. It is data that is more focused on blog posts and articles and news stories and books that have been written by and about white, Western, highly educated people. So really important to understand that there's a huge range of people and expertise that isn't necessarily captured in this data. And so when you ask AI and it spits out an answer, it may very confidently tell you something that is either not true or is a half truth. And it will sometimes even give you links to what it claims is the source of this data. And then if you actually follow the links, you see that in fact, it's not true. So that's the cautionary note I would sign in terms of career exploration tools and employment related. Let me stop there because that was a lot, and I know we have a lot of rich conversation to get to.
Thank you, Amanda. Yes, definitely. That was a strong start for us here. Let me turn this conversation to John. John, you've been in this space, technology, for a very long time. So in a way, if I'm looking for the watchman, it's going to be you. You can see way ahead of us before anything hit us. So what do you see AI, the role of AI in general skills development for workers? What are you seeing, John?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting topic, and specifically, there's been a lack of dialogue at the national level or at a global level about the impact of what's coming with AI down the pike. I think there's actually a government function under the Biden administration, a person who was a security lead who could see what was coming, right, and was talking about it, but nobody was talking about it in the campaign. Nobody was talking about it as a national policy issue. We're still not talking about it as a national policy issue. And the reason why we should be talking about it as a national policy issue is that the impact to all of us, right, not just immigrants, but all workers, is going to be profound over the next 10 years. And when I say profound, I mean it's going to be hugely disruptive. Now, I don't want everybody to be afraid, because there's going to be lots of things that we can do. There's a lot of ways that you could take advantage of AI to kind of help, not necessarily, I guess, protect yourself, or at least bolster your capabilities and bolster your career prospects. But I think what everybody needs to understand going forward is that the capability that is coming out of these AI labs is getting so advanced that it is starting to be able to do the work of, or some of the work that knowledge workers are doing today. And it depends on what you're doing, like if you're a writer or a creative versus a data analyst versus you're a driver versus doing some other things. Depending on what your career is, where you're going, what you're doing, some careers are going to be more impacted and some careers are going to be less. And so it's really important to understand the what the impact might be on the career that you care about for yourself, and think about, well, if things like writing and reasoning are going to be done by the AI at a level that is really very advanced, right? And you'll hear a term coming soon, and I'll define it in one way, and there's lots of definitions, but you'll start to hear more about something called artificial general intelligence, or the concept that, and I'll define it here at one level, and there's other definitions, which is that the AI can do the thought work, the intellectual work of the average person across almost every type of task that is standard, right? Like common tasks, common capabilities, writing a report, analyzing a report, thinking about strategy, thinking about the work. And we're getting to that point right now where people are starting, literally in the last couple of weeks, I've heard people talking about a recent release that came out from one of the labs as being maybe the first instance where we can call it AGI. It's that good, right? It's that deep. And so from a without getting into a lot of technical details and all of that, from a workforce development perspective and from a training perspective, two things I would recommend really right out of the gate is spend some time. First of all, you should know how to use generative AI. As Amanda points out, there's lots of different AIs. The ones that you need to be concerned about right now is generative AI and ChatGPT and equivalents, right? So Google Gemini, ChatGPT, Anthropic, there's all these different products. And there are free versions of them. And for yourself, using the free versions is perfectly fine. You won't get the most advanced capabilities, but that's fine. In the workplace, however, you should only use paid versions because of data privacy, and there's other reasons, and we'll just leave that aside. But you should know how to use these tools. You should look at some of the online material, watch a YouTube video about using ChatGPT and what it means, and understand what the thing, what something is that's called a prompt, which is the instructions you give it, and to evaluate the output. And as Amanda pointed out, that output could be very different for different people and for different use cases. Part of that's bias, part of it is randomness. So I will explain it at a high level, and then I'm going to move on and let the next panelist go here. I will come in, I'll put some notes in there, Arnold, about some things that I think you should look at. I'll put it in the chat. Where was I going? So the basic concepts of generative AI really need to be understood by all of us, all of you, and you should be thinking about, how do I use this to make myself more intelligent, more capable, and move forward. So I think the biggest issue is that from a skills development perspective, you need to be AI skilled, right? You need to be AI workers, because there will be no place in the workforce for people who cannot use the AI. When I say in the workforce, I mean in knowledge work. There will be no place for knowledge work that doesn't involve using AI. There's all sorts of other careers that don't. But there's these levels of AI capability, everything from these chatbots that you see right now, up to the labs kind of start thinking about, what does it look like in the when AI translates into the physical world. And now we're talking about robotics, right? And what is the work that a robot can do versus the work that a chatbot can do? And these are, very different, but we're moving in that direction. So the important thing is to be thinking ahead. Where are you going to be 5 years from now? Where is your career going to be if high levels of intelligence are at your fingertips and basically free?
Thank you, John. That's a good opening. Now, let me turn to Tiffany here for a bit. Tiffany, you also occupy a very important role in this work, AI, at Job for the Future. And your organization is really a leader when it comes to workforce development in this area. So again, the watchman view here, What are you beginning to see happening with incorporating AI to when it comes to workforce development? What are the practices that you're beginning to see, and what are some of the challenges that workforce organizations are running into as we're beginning to upskill workforce or get workers ready for what is coming at all of us?
Absolutely. Thanks, Emmanuel. And so many great points being made by Amanda and John ahead of me too. And I'm really glad you're asking this question though, because this is more at kind of the organization level, right? We all have a responsibility, to John's point, to make sure that the immigrants that we're serving have the abilities, the knowledge, the capabilities to use AI in their work, to John's point, because that's just going to be the norm, right? That is going to be a foundational skill that everyone's going to need. And that also applies then to organizations in workforce development. There are lots of great opportunities to leverage the power of generative AI in particular, potentially agentic AI, which is sort of the next step as well, to really, in a resource constrained environment, be able to serve more individuals, provide better quality services with the power of AI, knowing that we're augmenting folks' work and not necessarily having to replace them. So, and really just, focusing on the tasks that are really uniquely human, the tasks that are really kind of relationship driven, that are really going to move the work forward, and being able to automate and offboard some of the more routine rote tasks. So I think what we're seeing in terms of what is happening, so we did some research last year around generative AI use cases in workforce development, really trying to understand what are the use cases, first of all, and then what does the market look like now in terms of where are their tools and where are their uses being currently used, but also identifying potentially where are there some potential uses that we would love to see in the future, right? So the most common ways we're really seeing workforce development programs using AI tools these days are around a few places. So a lot in service development or service delivery, right? So resume and cover letter development, career exploration, and interview practice, I think we see a lot. And for these use cases, you can use a general large language model, but there are also a lot of tools that are specific to workforce development, specific to, populations that are generally historically overlooked, for example. So resume and cover letter development, I think we often see folks using, your general large language models, your ChatGPTs, your Claudes, your Geminis, et cetera. Because there's a real use in being able to use AI to generate resumes, to review resumes, and for alignment to particular job descriptions, and then, really tailoring cover letters and generating cover letters as a starting point to be able to use in job applications. And that really speeds up the process there. Career exploration is another great area, with all the caveats that Amanda mentioned around the biases kind of baked into some of these systems. But Gladio is a great example. Career Village has a coach tool. SkillUp has an AI tool. Google Career Dreamer just came out recently. But all of these tools really help to take a person's experiences, interests, skills, and help try to translate that into looking into opportunities that are relevant for them in terms of careers that they can explore and get a better sense of. Again, with those caveats of where bias is baked into some of these systems, but some of the specific tools I mentioned are really trying to mitigate against those biases. And then lastly, there's another great opportunity for interview practice. So if you think about generating some ideas for questions that you may be asked in an interview, using generative AI, actually, typing in some answers, or even using voice to be able to practice those answers and then getting some feedback on that. There are some tools that are working on that as well. So, Smart Interview Coach, Talk Hiring, et cetera. I can send out the link to our research, which has, a large list of tools against many of these use cases. So a lot of what I'm just talking about is in service delivery, but there's also, again, as I mentioned before, a lot of potential in the organizational capacity and effectiveness piece, right? For organizations to leverage generative AI to really streamline their operations. So for example, writing grant applications or, analyzing data from the people that they serve to better understand where they can provide and augment their services. I think those are a little bit more nascent, but still really great use cases that we've heard some folks start to dabble into. And so, these tools really, again, the promise is that they are easy to use because they're using, generative AI, plain language to be able to get some of these outputs. But there are some real challenges around making sure that staff members themselves have the AI literacy and the foundational understanding to be able to use these tools in the right ways, keeping in mind data privacy, keeping in mind mitigating bias, even knowing how to find the tools and the right tools to use in particular use cases. And then really kind of more philosophically, a little bit to some of the themes John brought up, what is the balance of what we retain uniquely as humans and what should AI take on, right? And so we're very much at JFF of the mind that we need to find ways to augment human work, make sure that humans can spend the time on the real relationship, collaboration, other drivers for economic mobility that we're really seeing, and use AI in the right and smart ways to take on work that it's more routine and that can free up time for humans and really work in partnership with AI rather than direct replacement. So that was a lot to
That's a
throw at
lot.
you all, and
Yeah.
I'm happy to send the link to some of the research that we've done.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a wealth of knowledge you just shared with us here. Tiffany, I'm going to keep you on for a little bit. Um, Amanda touches on AI biases, and it's for real, right? I use Share with us your thought. How would this impact economic mobility, if you have any thought on it? And what can we begin to do to address some of these biases as workforce organizations, as we're looking at how do we support workers in this new era we are in? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of potential negative impacts here, right? To Amanda's point, if you have a system that cannot recognize immigrants' job experiences, value, and are, spitting out job recommendations that are going to keep folks underemployed, because we know that that is also a big issue with immigrant communities, then that really impacts economic mobility. And so there was actually a great study done by Upwardly Global. They've done a lot of great work here in really interrogating the bias in AI career navigation tools. It showed, for example, that 35% of education credentials and 20% of work experience credentials from immigrant and refugee communities were misidentified. So that's a huge amount where you're talking about folks not getting the recognition for the skills and the credentials that they have just because they may be from a different country, because the models are not trained necessarily on those specific credentials, right? The same thing with application answers and essay questions. So 98% of essays written by non-English speakers were misidentified as being written by AI because they are not using the standard language that the models were trained on. And so that can be a flag for talent acquisition representatives who are saying, oh, well, did you use AI to write the essay? And that is, may filter somebody out of the equation, even when that's not necessarily the case. So again, that has big impacts on economic mobility if folks are not able to get jobs because of these inherent biases within the system. And so I think, what can we do about it? I think a few things, right? So one is at an organization level to be really cognizant of some of these biases that are baked into the systems, to have processes that require human review of any AI outputs, to make sure that you are actually working with the communities and individuals from immigrant communities to understand how they should and can leverage AI. And I think there's a kind of systems level need here for AI tools, which, to Amanda's point earlier, are not developed with these users in mind, right? Immigrants are a small slice of the population, so those are not folks that they are targeting their products to necessarily, because they're targeting to a median user, the average quote unquote user, whatever that means. But immigrant communities really need to be a part of that conversation. AI tools need to be actively testing with immigrant populations, designing in partnership with them in order to catch these biases, right? So that's really the work that Upwardly Global has really done to be able to work in partnership with some of these tools to say, hey, focus on these populations, catch these issues, and build your own systems to be able to mitigate against that.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. This is great. Now, I'm going to go back to John. I'm going to shift the focus a little bit here. I'm looking at the impact of AI on job creation and new opportunities, right? Let's turn our attention. What are the potentials here? What do you see, John, in terms of the creation of new roles and transformation of even existing roles? Is there any examples you can lift for us? Again, we got to look for what is good in here so that we can find it as well.
Yeah, I posted something into the chat around something called Jobs GPT. Highly recommend that you guys just take a quick look at it. Look at that page. It's developed by some people that I really like. A company called SmarterX. This guy named Paul Roetzer who runs the Artificial Intelligence Show podcast, which I also reference. Highly recommend looking at this because it's a great way for you to think about how do I help evaluate and help your clients, for those of you that are involved directly in working with clients in workforce development, helping them understand what the impact will be on their work, right? So, and their careers. So being able to put in a job title or a job description and say, you know, how is it going to be impacted as AI evolves into different levels of exposure and so on. And that will help you determine, okay, where am I at risk? Where is my exposure, right? If you're driving a truck, you know, exposure right now isn't as high, but eventually it will be pretty high. If you are a financial analyst, it's going to be pretty high pretty quickly. So think about all of those things. And then there's actually the capability of like, help me envision new careers, right? What are the new careers going to be? I think it was Tiffany that mentioned, right, the thought about how do we think about, you know, what the role of humans is going to be and what's going to be unique and special for us. And I think that's where you think about, that's where you start to deal with careers that are more isolated from the impact is where you're directly customer facing, right? You're sitting, you know, you're working in the hospitality industry, or you're working in something where you're actually dealing directly with clients face to face, like in the real world, not necessarily online. So that's really, you know, those are going to be good. Now, creating new jobs out of AI, that's still highly, I'm going to call it highly speculative, like what the new jobs are going to be. But I will tell you one, which is not necessarily one that you're going to like to hear, right? Which is that organizations are going to transform from managers that manage groups of people to agent managers that manage groups of AI agents, right? I know this is going to sound a little bit weird, right? The concept here is that as the AI expands, and I think Tiffany mentioned agentic, or somebody mentioned agentic AI early on. Agentic AI is the concept of the AI doing something more than I just ask it a question, it gives me a response. I ask it to do something and it takes multiple steps and then comes back to me with the output of that work. And we're getting to the point now where you can develop fairly sophisticated workflows where it can go off and do a lot of things. And then at the end of the day, there'll be humans that eventually are get involved. It's called human in the loop. Gets involved and actually says, you know, this is a good output. I'm going in the right direction. Just like as a manager, right? I'm thinking about, I give my team some instructions and I ask them to do some tasks and they go off and do the tasks. And what do I do? Do I wait until the end of that task deadline to check in with them? No, I'm checking in with them fairly regularly. How are you doing? Why don't you show me some interim work? Why don't, you know, let's make some corrections, or let's change the direction of things. You'll do that with the AI as well. So the concept of an AI manager, right? Want somebody who manages AI outputs and make sure that the AI is getting the right instructions and giving you the right results is really critical. And as I think might have been Amanda that said about the fact that it can hallucinate, it can make up things. And I think this is the way for you to think that the easiest way, the analogy that I use all the time when I'm delivering workshops to executive teams is as follows. Most of us will know if I say Jack and Jill, the next words are going to be go up the hill or went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. It's a nursery rhyme, very common nursery rhyme, at least here in the States. If I said Jack and Diane, most of you will probably pick up the reference to a song by John Cougar Mellencamp. But if I say Jack and Emmanuel, what comes next? So think back. What these systems are is predicting what they should say next. They're not smart. They're just predictive engines. So if I say Jack and Emmanuel, if I say that 7 times in a row in 7 different chat sessions, I will get 7 completely different answers because it doesn't know what to say. But if I say Jack and Diane, most often the time it's going to say, oh, that's a song from John Cougar Mellencamp. And if I say Jack and Jill, it will complete the nursery rhyme for me. So AI is so the reason why humans are always going to need to be involved, or at least for now, is that it has the possibility of it kind of getting off track. It can get off track a little bit. And understanding why it gets off track is important, but humans have to bring it back and put it back on track. Just like my employees, I have to bring them back and put them back on the right track and so on. So that kind of a job is going to be critical. I think things where you are working with and helping other humans, other people figure out how to leverage this and get the most value out of it. That's a job that people need right now. People talk about prompt engineers. I don't know if that's somebody who knows how to write the right kind of prompts. That's should be a skill that everybody has. I'm not sure if it's a separate job, right? But right now, I think we're kind of challenged with kind of figuring out what the new jobs are going to be. We know there will be some. We just don't know exactly what they're going to be.
That's a good answer, John. There's still a lot that we don't know, and there's still a lot that is evolving. So I've been notified that I'm running out of time here, but there's so much questions I wanted to ask our panel because you don't get them like this every day. But we ran against time here. So I want to give our panelists 1 minute conclusion thought here. I'm going to make it free range. I'm going to bring Amanda back in first. Amanda, wrap it up for us. 1 minute. What do you leave with your audience this afternoon?
Takeaway number one, be a healthy skeptic. Nobody had to pay you lots of money to get you to use a smartphone. You started using one because it was useful to you. Be careful about people who tell you that AI is the future and you have to start using it and are pushing you hard. If it's really useful, you'll start using it. So be healthy and skeptical about what's getting pushed on you, and be wise about the environmental impact of these tools. Number two, think about these tools as a force for good. How can they help us accomplish something powerful and good, right? AI tools being used for drug discovery can churn through lots of different variables really fast and then tell the scientists which ones to look at. AIs looking at animal migration patterns can churn through years of data very, very quickly and tell us something interesting. That is AI doing what it does best, and humans doing what they do best. So be smart about thinking about not just, oh, AI is going to take over all the tasks that currently exist, but are there new tasks that we could never do because humans never had enough time or energy that AI could do, and then give humans something cool to take and run with and explore? And the last thing I'm going to say is just because something isn't visible in the AI training set, that is, nobody wrote it down and put it on the internet and then it got vacuumed up by one of these AI models, doesn't mean it isn't something real that really happened in the world. So make sure that as immigrant job seekers and small business owners and workers, that people are reflecting their full lived experience and not limiting themselves to this blinkered view of the world that AI has because it was trained on these particular data sets, right? There is expertise that people have that nobody ever wrote down and stuck on a web page, but that doesn't make it any less of an expertise. So I think that's important to keep in mind as you're thinking about AI tools. And that's where I'll stop.
That is lovely, Amanda. Now I want to bring Tiffany in here. 1 minute takeaway thoughts for us, Tiffany.
Yeah, I'm going to take a little bit of a workforce development bent on this, which is, we talked a little bit about AI literacy, and I think a lot of that goes to Amanda's points, right? Really understanding how the technology works, what its limitations are, how it can be used are going to be really critical to make that discernment about where AI can be helpful and where, maybe it's not. And that should happen both for the individual you serve, but also for you as organizations to be able to have that foundational level of understanding to move forward in this new world. But I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the other pieces that we should still keep in mind as we think about skills development, as we think about what are uniquely human and what is going to make folks successful in the future. We know that durable skills is going to continue to be important, to have the critical thinking skills, to be able to leverage these tools, but also to just exist in the way in managing AI agents, for example, like John was talking about. Those are skills that really are going to come to the forefront, and we're already seeing that in some of the labor market data. And then lastly, domain expertise is also going to continue to be important to really actually understand how these tools can impact a specific sector, a specific industry, a specific occupation in that space. That is also going to be a differentiator. And we also need to think about what that looks like in terms of development of domain expertise in a world where some of these entry-level jobs are starting to get truncated, and we need different bridges and ways to build up that experience to be able to be successful. So those are the three things I would ask you all to consider as you're thinking about how to serve both yourselves as individuals, but also the individual immigrant communities that you serve.
Thank you. John, 1 minute on the dot. What do you leave with
Yeah,
us?
there you go. No problem, Emmanuel. So I'm going to take my first answer is going to be actually a little bit against what Amanda said, which is that Amanda said, be skeptical and don't just use it because it's out there. I take a different approach. I think everybody that is in career development and workforce development roles should be helping your clients and your communities become more AI literate and capable. I think it is really critical. I know I'm in the business. That's different. That's a whole, kind of unrelated thing. I think workers that are, particularly in any kind of knowledge field, that are not able to use these tools effectively are going to be at a very, very big disadvantage. So I highly encourage that people learn them. And the analogy that I use is that we don't need to be told to use a word processor like, Google Docs or anything. We use them because they make us more productive. We know that using a spreadsheet is better than using a ledger. We know that using, the phone is better than, or using email is more productive and faster than sending a letter across the country to all of my colleagues. So I think we need to think about the AI tools in the same light. It is a productivity superpower that you need to know how to use, period. Second thing is that people need to be also told that that whatever is coming out of AI, and I think we touched on this in different contexts, it's still your responsibility when you take the output and you give it to somebody else. It's your responsibility. The fact that the AI created it isn't an excuse, and it's not a defense against sending something that's completely wrong. So there have been cases where a lawyer presented, arguments to a judge filled with case law that doesn't exist because ChatGPT made it up, right? There are books that get quoted that don't exist, as Gloria or somebody else put in the chat here. You need to remember, and everybody needs to be told, you're still responsible for what you do with the output of this, and you should check the facts and make sure that the links are real and make sure that the things that are mentioned do exist. The research, the biomedical research that's being referenced around a patent or something, it'll make it up if it doesn't find something that actually works. It's kind of like that person that that will always give you an answer, even if they're wrong, rather than saying, I don't know. They don't say, I don't know. They just give you an answer. So if they have to give you an answer, they're going to make one up if they don't have the real one handy. So just keep that in mind. One, be responsible. Two, use it. Get your people to use it. So that's my last takeaway.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. This is really amazing. What I love about this is the diverse perspective. What we are trying to do here to show you a broader spectrum around what the AI is and what it can become and how do you approach it as well. So we're going to transition quickly. We have a whole report that we want to share with you, and I really want to quickly introduce our speaker here. Nicole Katufro is the founder of Do It Well. It's a digital program platform doing customer-facing work. Um, Nicole has been doing this work for more than 10 years. She has so much experience. She's actually an immigrant professional herself. And when she approached ABN, she said to me, Emmanuel, I want to make sure that the immigrant community is well positioned to take advantage of what is coming our way. And I love that about her. She's leaning in and she also making sure her community is benefiting from her skill set. And she put her research skills to use to us. And what you're about to see is really quick, impactful study. And what we were trying to do here is to figure out if ABN is going to do some of this work, where do we start from? Where's the starting point? We chose to look at the job seeker and figure out where are the opportunities to help them to beginning to experiment. How do you use the AI too? So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole and she will share her findings with us. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and Nicole will take it up from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel, and thank you, everyone. I'm gonna share my screen in a few seconds, and then if someone can confirm me that everybody can see the presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, great. So as Emmanuel was saying, this was like a collaborative approach on understanding the use of AI in this population immigrant workforce. And I just want to touch on a few things here before we get started with the research insights and sharing our outcomes. I really appreciate what the previous speaker said about focusing on the users, and that was our research focus here, really understanding the user needs of the specific population and how can AI help them, if the AI can help them, and what is the current usage, what is the most favorite and approaches to it. So it was really a combined approach on understanding and putting users at the center of what we do here. And we were so lucky to have the opportunity to collaborate with ABN and having the access to this population that was so generous in sharing feedback with us through the survey that we collected. How we did that, we started with a literature review. So we have been analyzing what was out there. So what researchers and analysts have been studying about the use of AI and technology specifically for these populations. So skilled immigrants, recent immigrants, and we found a lot of useful insight that we're going to be sharing a little bit. And then we also did a competitive analysis of what are the current tools, like the speakers mentioned. There are so many tools available. So what are the current tools that have been used by this population, that are serving this population? And that was very useful for us to kind of craft the questions as well when we were asking, how would you like AI to support you in your career development, in your job matching or job search journey? We interviewed 70 immigrants to a survey, and also we had the opportunity to talk one-on-one with a lot of the coaches and really the experts at ABN that are in touch with this population every day. So we really wanted to put the user at the center of this product discovery phase. And it was such let's say, learning experience for me and for everyone, I think. So let's start with the literature review. Some things that we found is about the AI in the workplace. So how is it used? And for example, something that also the speakers previously mentioned that we also found that AI, it is performed specifically for the person that designed that tool. So that's something that was already called out of really the misrepresentation of the design of these tools if they do not represent specific target users, like in this case, the immigrant population. And then AI in recruitment, like what are the challenges? So we found, for example, that there are some challenges finding employment. And one thing, for example, could be also just the feeling of anxiety for the users, like for knowing that AI, it is used in the recruitment phases. It could be because you need to be scrutinized. Your profile can be scrutinized to technology, AI facial and voice recognition in video interviews. That was already called out in examples, tangible examples from the workplace, for example, accents, or different way of showing in a video interviews that can create anxiety in users, and that was already analyzed and shared in previous literature review. And then AI in credential evaluation. So how is it used, and is it used for that? Does it have like cultural biases? Are there any issues? We found a lot of literature in that domain. We know that this is a hurdle for immigrant particularly. And so that was something that we use as a basis to structure this survey. Same apply for AI in digital mentorship. What are the barriers to that, and again, like what are the things that have been like already analyzed as blockers? So it could be security concern, expectations, and also the number of the population that is having access to this tool. Like we said, data training and all of that is really important for having a quality output and input when interacting with generative AI, for example. So that's something that has already been explored and that we use as a foundation. So here, what we found that could be useful is, because this is just really the start, this could be a never-ending analysis as we evolve in this use of AI to uplift this specific population, is really like trying to understand more about those fears of algorithmic biases, employment discriminations, so studying more in the different segment and sector of immigrants, how this really deploys in their workplace. So those are implication for future research that we found that could be useful to approach. And so let's move on to the survey insights. So like I said, we surveyed 70 participants from immigrant workforce. In target, as you will see from the responses, we really understood that all the participants are immigrants indeed, and also represent very well the mission of ABN of uplifting highly skilled immigrants and giving them a good opportunity when relocating here to the United States and integrating the workforce. And so when we craft the survey, we really wanted to make sure that we put in all the findings from the literature review, but also the suggestion from the coaches and all the wonderful professionals at ABNs that know this population so well. So we'll start with the demographic. Demographic, like we're saying, was confirming that we were studying and analyzing an in-target population, like really multilingual, and recently arrived immigrants. That was 50% of the 70 respondent just arrived in the United States in the last 3 years, and have a significant presence of different languages, and as you can see from the graph on the right. And then when it comes to the education, so when we talk about brain waste, or when we talk about highly skilled immigrants, that was certainly the case. So here you see a very highly educated population, holding bachelor degree, master degrees, and being very expert in field of studies like healthcare, business management, and technology. Something interesting here that we found is that most of the respondents were interested in healthcare for this specific 70 participant. Obviously, this is one of the future expansion of the research to understand with more immigrants, what if that will be changing. But for this specific initial research for ABN, we found a high interest in healthcare, in technology, and then we compare that with the employment status just to see how many of those that were interested to work in those specific tech sector were able to find employment in those fields. And so we have seen that there is a gap in the, let's say, the willingness to be working in a design industry, and also their previous experience and education, and what they can actually do and what they can actually find as a job opportunity that was already found in the literature that we mentioned earlier as a gap, and that we confirmed with this survey as being a problem, an issue for this respondent. Moving on with the challenges that we partially touched on, some of the challenges of this of the immigrants is the lack of work experience, the skill gaps, the lack of understanding of U.S. job in the market, discrimination, biases, and this is just like a way of collecting the real need and the real barriers from the user. I want to highlight a few of user voices here. I need to improve my English. My STEM OPT status makes most recruiters avoid further discussion. Need to complete US MLE and repeat residency qualification. So these are the barriers that we found in the respondent that are confirmed also with some of the literature review that we analyzed. And these are things that we need to take in consideration when thinking of a product or an AI solution that can fill that gaps and how to fill that gaps. So that at that point, we really started asking about the challenging, but also challenges toward that could be filled with training programs, for example. And some of them were, for example, limited availability of programs, technology access was also recognized as an issue. I'm not ignoring the first one, which is the cost of training of the program also being an issue there. And how those respondents will love to receive help. They will love to receive help tangibly through credential interview support, networking, translating those credentials, their skills, being skill ready for the US job market, and finding way that they can be matched through AI potentially with what is their career path, or what is this let's say gap in their skills and what is needed to be successful in the US market. Talking about technology use, something that we found for me wasn't surprising, but something that we found is that majority of the respondents are very comfortable with technology. Just a small percentage is not, and majority of them are actually interested in AI as a tool, AI as career counseling, AI as a way to solve some of the issues. We were specifically asking about this. So we were specifically targeting their needs, their pain points, and understanding if they will be open to AI-powered tools supporting those needs. About AI use, what is their current AI use? And we discussed also previously very largely the speaker really did a great job explaining all the different types of usage. Here we are focused on generative AI. So this is a split of the current use of the tools. It's very diverse, and that also shows that matching with their declaration of actually being comfortable with the AI tool, they were able to mention many, and they were able to say which one were their favorite at this stage and using for what. There is a little bit of a lack of knowledge, but just for a little part of the target, most of them are comfortable and know about AI. there are 24.44% that they say I don't use generative AI tools. So there is also a margin of opportunity there to make sure that those target can also be included in that. And then I'm gonna wrap up on the last part of it, just talking about how they will like to use generative AI tools for making their work analysis and work research and integration in the U.S. workforce easier. And most are saying something that they already share with us. So career support, writing assistance, researching information, language translation or learning, upskilling, personal productivity, coding support, 9%, 18% do not use the tool. And currently not use the tool. So again, that's the area of opportunity that can be explored. Challenges, we mentioned them a little bit also in the literature review. Privacy, data concerns, difficulty understanding how to use AI, cost of accessing advanced AI besides the free available tools. And that's something that it was interesting for us to deep dive a little bit more. For the opportunities, summarizing what were the key opportunities that were shared by this target. Certification and licensing. Want AI help with career transition, tech skills, soft skills, and leadership. AI and digital literacy skills, improving in that field. Real-time translation, social services, and workplace culture guidance. So those are the putting the user as the center. Those are really the key points that they share with us as what could have been the tangible ways of using AI to improve their integration in the workplace. So to wrap up, I just want to share like a few of the learnings here. I will say that definitely many are interested in AI solution. As you have seen, there is still a gap, or like there is still like a percentage of immigrants that are still skeptical or maybe do not have access because of cost, because of opportunity to AI tools, and that need to assistance and help to fill that gap. Immigrants are highly educated, and we know that, but they face systemic barriers. And so how can AI help them out to really make a difference in that integration and like speed that curve, and also take the opportunity of their multilingual skill set that they bring to the table. Most of the responses would like to simplify their career path, making it easier to apply for more job and having relevant certification, training opportunity and courses, and expressing the need of career readiness for what is like, the current trend in the workforce in the United States. I already covered the skepticism. Like I said, it's an important part as well of what we found, although it is a smaller part compared to the openness and the curiosity to understand how AI can serve this population. And I bring it back to here to the group. And thank you for listening to our report. Also, one thing, I know that the team will be sharing the complete analysis. This was just a snapshot of our analysis that is a little bit more long in terms of the richness of the response that we collected, and particularly for the literature review. And we are very happy to share anything with you.
Well, Nicole, again, thank you for bringing your skill set, your talent to the work we do here at ABN to help support all of us as we seek to support the immigrant community as we're looking at the impact of AI, both the good and the bad, and how do we take advantage of the good and avoid the bad here. So this is an ongoing work, as you said. This is just to figure out where the starting point for us. With that said, thank you again. And I want to recognize we are we've run out of time a little bit, but what we want to do is to give you a chance. You've hung in with us for this an hour and a half here. If you need to jump, please feel free. You can leave, and that is all right. But you may have questions. We've thrown a lot at you. We want to give you a chance. We hope to wrap this thing by 1:30. If you have any questions, this will be a good time. Or it might not be a question. Maybe you know some of this stuff already. You want to share your perspective. This will be a good time. If you can indicate by raising your hands, it will really help me identify who is in line, and then I can um, call you in. Or if you want to put it in the chat, go ahead and do so as well.
I do also just want to say real quick before we open it up that we do have a short evaluation form for today's
Oh,
session.
Natasha, you are tracking her completely as a teacher now, correct?
Okay, I think that person unmuted by mistake. I was just saying I have a short evaluation form that it's only 2 questions. So if you guys could just take a moment to fill it out, I will be sending it in an email after the session as well, but the link for it is in the chat. So any feedback would be super helpful and we would really appreciate it. But I will leave that and now open it up to questions. Thank you.
The floor is open. Your reaction to what you've heard this afternoon is also good if anyone wants to react to it.
And if we have no questions or comments, that's also okay.
Uh, Hi everyone. I'm trying to look for the raise your hand button. I could not find that. My name is Martine Gomba. I joined a little bit late. Apologies for that. But all I just want to say is I'm really, really grateful and happy we're having this conversation. I'm currently in the data privacy world and in the pharmaceutical space, and AI is the talk of the day. And as an immigrant, I'm still struggling to, learn more about AI and infiltrate in that space. And I really want to commend on Nicole's presentation. It was really, really great and very timely. And I think it will be very, very beneficial for all of us immigrants. And I look forward to more of this type of sessions.
Thank you, Martin. That is good to know. All right. I see Jeff. Jeff, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Avian, for doing this session and for all the participants. It's an amazingly useful wealth of information. I just was wondering, in somehow trying to split the difference between tools that can empower people and being aware of the inherent bias in them. For anybody in the panel, has anyone thought about, or have you encountered anyone trying to do something? And it could be somebody on the user side, somebody on the development or culture side to somehow mitigate, in using a tool, some of the biases. I'm writing a job letter. How do I, sort of find a way to use creative prompts or use my own native judgment to try to understand and compensate for, or at least work around some of the biases that maybe, I'm aware of, whether, it's obvious or not to me, and maybe the biases that are inherent in the data. I mean, I'm also, I was thinking of I think Amanda quoted this, the fact that a large share of essays of writing done by immigrants is often targeted as written by AI, which is sort of interesting because, in fact, a lot of, having done a lot of work with immigrant writers, taught courses in writing for immigrants, the writing often is not particularly, it doesn't strike me as the kind of writing I see coming across from AI, which is often very sort of bureaucratic. It sort of sounds like it's sort of written, in a very flat, neutral way. Although I know certainly there are ways to sort of tune the style of AI to write in a particular stance. So just any response, to the ways in which, let's say, particular immigrant users, but this also could be any user, is be more aware of and help mitigate some of the inherent biases, even while they're trying to take advantage of all the opportunities that the tools provide. Then thanks, everyone.
This is a live topic of discussion on the National Digital Inclusion Alliance listserv. There are nonprofit organizations that have taught digital navigation and foundational digital skills to local community members for years. And a lot of them are wrestling with exactly this issue. We used to teach media literacy. We used to teach information literacy. How do we teach AI literacy and help people to use the good that AI has to offer while navigating or mitigating some of the bad? I haven't seen anybody that has come up with what I consider to be kind of like a standardized set of tools or rubric or a set of practices, but I've by no means done a comprehensive survey of this. So other folks on this panel may be aware of tools that I'm not aware of.
Not
Yeah,
aware
I
of any
think
tools. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead,
Please.
John.
No, you go too.
I was just going to say, I don't know of any specific tools either. I think it's maybe more of a process question too, because as an individual user, the ability to mitigate biases that are baked into AI systems are more around what you were talking about, essentially, Jeff, right? But the human review of outputs that AI is creating for you, and to use your own discernment and judgment with the knowledge of AI and its limitations to be able to assess what the outcome is and make additional changes based on your own expertise and knowledge and experiences. And I think at a high level, that's generally what you can do as an individual. But John, go ahead.
Nothing to add. I mean, I think you guys hit it. There's not. I haven't seen any tools, and I think you can prompt for style and tone. You can prompt for you can take existing writing and you can say write it like this writing. So you paste in the previous writing that you might have had and say paste it in this way. If that helps, it'll kind of sound a lot more like that. So there's a lot of ways for you to kind of move it in a specific direction, make it longer, make it shorter, change the language. Change the idioms, like use more idioms, use fewer, right? Use more casual language, use more formal language. So you can change a lot of things in it as you're prompting it. And so I think that's where it happens. And you should build up some prompts and save them so that you can use them over and over.
Great. Thanks,
one thing that I wanted to add on that, I think this is a good observation, Jeff, like as an idea to develop with the user in mind, like what you just shared could also be that it doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, then how can we how can we help users to learn how to prompt to fight against these biases and provide like an easy way of doing it? Could also be as simple as an article just sharing, these are like John was mentioning, these are the most successful prompts. And one note I wanted to say is that we're all learning with generative AI. Like every day we learn something new, and this is such a specific target users that sometimes maybe doesn't have the opportunity to be analyzed and studied a lot. So maybe I know university are doing a lot for in general digital literacy and how to help with a generative AI literacy. But I'm so inspired by your observation on how this could be implemented practically as a solution.
Thanks, everyone. I always, to hit Tiffany's point, I always wonder, with AI so much in use, I mean, all of us, I think, who've been in this field, who've worked, who've studied, who've had the experience, of working our way up the, non-AI job ladder, have a lot of experience and judgment from our own work about how to sort of apply that kind of judgment that Tiffany and John mentioned for new users or for users just coming into this workforce from very different cultural background. I think there going to be less equipped with some of those tools, and that's what worries me, you know. But thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jeff. I think this will be a good time to stop, but this is my parting thought I want to share with all of you. After listening to the panel discussion, listening to Nicole's presentation, it impressed on me that it will be also irresponsible on our part just to put these two in the hands of, especially new immigrants who are trying to build their career here and say, there you go, just use it. It seems there's so much need for that AI literacy to able to help people to understand what is it that they are dealing with, right? The complications that comes with it, so that they themselves can watch out or figure out how do they mitigate some of these biases before they put anything out there. So I think that's probably a way we should be looking at it. We have to figure out a way to prepare the immigrant community for what is coming ahead of us. And I want to say thank you, first of all, to our panelists and to Nicole and to Maddie for hosting us this afternoon, and to everyone who spent an hour and a half of your time with us. Thank you so much. If you have questions and you want to reach out, please feel free to email Maddie or myself here at ABN. And what we're doing here is not that ABN will do everything. We're looking for the right partners. We're looking for the right collaboration just to ensure that immigrants are not left out of this while we're talking about AI here. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.